Hi, my name is Thomas O'Connor from Sam Houston State University, and I'm here to try to answer the question, do Texas public schools that use corporal punishment perform academically better than Texas public schools that do not? Worldwide, students are legally allowed to be subjected to corporal punishment in schools in countries, 68 countries, about 34% of the world. In Texas, there were nearly 30,000 students subjected to corporal punishment in 2011 with the potential of many more. 16% of districts allow it in some schools, 12% of districts report it actually happening. Much of the impact of school corporal punishment worldwide was shown to be negative, with very little empirical evidence of corporal punishment having any kind of positive effect on the student or the school. This study is focused on the academic performance of the schools that implement corporal punishment compared to the schools that do not. Many studies have shown a plethora of negative impacts on students from corporal punishment, such as depression, lower self-esteem, anxiety, and even school violence. Some went as far as to even point a correlation towards school shootings in a study in Pakistan. The literature of positive impact on the students subjected to corporal punishment was very limited, with the majority of it being anecdotal from news interviews and news articles with principals that were interviewed, and usually people saying something along the lines, I think it works because it worked on me. If the majority of research claims that school corporal punishment has a negative impact on students, why are public schools in Texas and other states still using corporal punishment? The purpose of this study is to determine if public schools in Texas that implement corporal punishment academically perform better than public schools that do not implement corporal punishment. The research literature, we try to seek the answers of what is the prevalence of school corporal punishment worldwide, what is the prevalence in the United States, and what is the prevalence here in Texas. And what impacts does corporal punishment have on the students? Is there positive impacts? Are there negative impacts? Are there impacts on academics? And that was what the literature review was the purpose of the research of the literature review. The hypothesis is schools that implement corporal punishment will perform better than schools that do not. If they have corporal punishment at their school, then they should have a better discipline, which should lead to better academics. Why else would we be still using this with all the evidence that points otherwise? Assumptions. It was assumed in the study there were no great differences in culture from one region of the state to another that would influence the impact of corporal punishment. For instance, I guess studied schools in East Texas versus North Texas versus West Texas. We assume that there isn't a great cultural difference, enough of a cultural difference to make an impact on the numbers. Limitations, possible difference in ethnic demographics between compared schools. Some studies show that ethnic groups are corporally punished more than non-ethnic groups. However, this study is not going to focus on that. An overall sample size of schools that use and don't use corporal punishment could also be a limitation. We're only using a small sample between 15 and 20 schools and comparing it to 15 and 20 schools that do not. There are so many schools in Texas that do allow it. A more comprehensive study would need to be done to answer the question completely. Delimitations, the study is controlling for the difference in student population and for the percentage of students at each school that were subjected to corporal punishment. There is data showing which schools do and their demographics, and going to measure their whether they're urban or rural, and try to get their school populations to match between a school that uses corporal punishment and a school that does not use corporal punishment. Should have the same population size, so therefore it won't throw off or skew the data any. Worldwide, students are legally, this is the literature review, and worldwide students are legally allowed to be subjected to corporal punishment in 68 countries. This is about 35% of the world. In the United States, 29 states plus the District of Columbia, approximately 58% of the country has banished or abolished corporal punishment. And due to the large student population in Texas, 1% that are subjected to school corporal punishment equates to 29,835 students in 2011, the second largest number of students of any state, Mississippi being the largest. The impacts of corporal punishment. We researched the impacts of corporal punishment. The studies of the positive impact of school corporal punishment were very limited. Furthermore, much of the evidence supporting positive impact of school corporal punishment in Texas public schools was anecdotal and found in online news publications, not peer-reviewed journals. The data rejected their hypothesis and that corporal punishment corrected negative behavior, and in fact showed corporal punishment strengthened bad behavior, such as school violence, in a study in Pakistan. Many of the studies did not address whether the school performed better overall. This study will focus on whether the school that uses corporal punishment performs better than the schools that do not by measuring graduation rates and test scores and comparing the two of similar sized schools.